Hello, and welcome to Barbatus Catholic Podcast, the show where three Mexican dads talk about faith, life, and culture. We are your hosts,
Gustavo,
Ivan,
and Walter, and today we are going to chat with Ryan Ayala and tell you why marriage is not for punks. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Tacos, tacos, tacos! Now that I have your attention, did you know that hashtag Taco Tuesdays doesn't just have to be on Tuesdays? You can make it hashtag taco every day with Don Taco mobile taco stand. If you're looking for the best tacos in the valley, look no further. Let Don Taco cater your next event. Whether it's a birthday party, baby shower, quinceañera, or a wedding, they will bring you the most delicious tacos with the freshest of ingredients. Do you like tacos de birria? They got them. Tacos de asada? Treat yourself. Tripas, cabeza? Guys, they got them. Book them today. Go to dontacocatering.com for more information. You can also follow them on Instagram at dontacomts. And now, to the show.
And we're back. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Today we have our first ever guest.
first ever. Cheers to that.
Cheers. Here, here.
Thank you for coming
Cling,
over, Ryan.
cling.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Sorry, as we all sip at the same time and create a silence.
Radio silence. Not good.
So,
I've heard.
Ryan, first question. What does it feel to be at the Bishop's Hour with Blessed is She and then coming
This
to the
thing.
lower tier of the Catholic podcast in Phoenix?
In this
In Studio
very
A.
sophisticated studio in the
Beautiful
garage.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Yeah, I feel great. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I feel absolutely wonderful.
Awesome. Good.
Perfect.
Well, now that we got that out of the way,
You hear that?
we're number 3, I
We're
guess,
number
right?
3. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. He hangs out with the elite of the Diocese of Phoenix, but he's se está dando baños de pueblo con nosotros.
You totally know what that means, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you first generation?
I'm not. No.
Okay. That's good. Pero sí hablas español.
Yo entiendo todo, pero
Mhm.
I can't speak very well.
Okay.
Yeah. You know why? Because my parents are from Nicaragua, and so when they came from Nicaragua to the United States, they wanted to learn English. So growing up, they only spoke English to us because they wanted to learn it. So we didn't actually end up growing speaking Spanish.
Interesting.
But I'm guessing you still have like the culture and all that. from
Yeah, we're
Nicaragua.
loud. You know, we're loud. We put our dishes in our oven for storage space. Like,
Yeah.
we
Of
oh,
course,
yeah,
as one should.
as one should. Yeah, that's right.
Dude, one time I did an event for your dad. What's that bottle of liquor that you made me try?
Flor de caña.
Oh, that's a really good
Yeah,
rum.
that's Nicaraguan rum. That's like the Nicaraguan staple there. So,
Wow.
that's pretty
18-year-old Flor de Caña.
It's
It's
pretty good.
good. 18. Wow. Yeah, 18 is good. That's
It's like
exclusive.
sipping rum, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to mix that.
No?
No.
Why not?
Because think of it as like kind of like a bourbon.
Yeah.
Like
Sort
un
of.
añejo, pues.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
So it has like hints of like vanilla and all of these things that are like super complex for a rum. So
Como si le echaras soda al Don Julio. You don't do that.
You just like
Exactly.
it's like heresy.
Yeah,
It's
you
like
don't
It's
do
like
can't
putting
do that.
cheese on a taco, which I know.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
Now
you
you're speaking my language.
Yeah, you
Okay,
just
I
don't
get
do
it.
that. You don't
I
do
get
that.
it.
okay.
Do not mix flor de caña. Got it.
There
Yeah.
you go. See, we are just purveyors of so
Knowledge.
valid information and knowledge here.
Do you want to talk about the cocktail that we're drinking right
Oh,
now?
for sure. Go ahead. It's so tasty. Walter
Did you
made
like
us
it?
Manhattans.
Is this boozy? Like because the couple ones that I made, like the Sazerac, you guys thought that it was like
That was
like a
loaded.
kick in the mouth.
That one was loaded.
This one's
This
very
one's
smooth.
this one's really.
I think I got the dilution
Mm-hmm.
to
Not,
the
not that
point.
there's anything wrong with that, but this one's really smooth.
Well,
Mhm.
Excellent.
for those who are listening, we have a budget for alcohol at the podcast. So
That we just discovered a week ago.
yeah, like
It's like, what? We haven't spent those advertising dollars? What are
I
we
know.
doing? Drinking water.
thanks, Video God, people want to advertise with us, and we are putting that money to good use. But
According to us, maybe not according to the sponsors.
they already handed over the money, so. But anyways, Ryan, so we know you, and but for those that don't know Ryan Ayala, Can you give us like a short bio? What are you doing right now? Like, how do you get to Phoenix? All those fun tidbits.
Yeah. So my story, begins when I was a junior in high school, actually, and my family's from Nicaragua, but they migrated to New Orleans, Louisiana, and we grew up in New Orleans. So my junior year, 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit, but I was already here in Arizona at the time. But I remember staying home that day and watching Katrina hit and devastate New Orleans, and I remember seeing it on TV, and it had a huge impact on me to see the city that I once loved. If you meet anyone from New Orleans and Louisiana, we love our city, we love our state. We're proudly from New Orleans. So I remember seeing my city kind of go underneath, just kind of in turmoil with the hurricane. Later on that week, my parents decided that they wanted to get a divorce, and then later on that week, my brother went to jail. And so I was really brought to the lowest part of my life, my junior year in high school. And I cried out for God, and I said, God, why are you allowing this to happen? And I do remember a very subtle voice, him telling me very, very, very subtly that, whatever I put you through, I would get you through. Something very simple. But I remember just kind of holding on to that. And then after that, I started to ask deeper questions about my faith. Two particular questions that I asked was, who started the Catholic Church, and where did the Bible come from? And once I discovered that it was Jesus Christ who founded the Catholic Church, I went nuts. I absolutely went nuts for Jesus. And I wanted to ensure that I dedicate my whole life to ensuring that people come to know the love of Jesus and his bride, Mother Church. Mm-hmm. And so that was really kind of what started it for me. And of course, the Bible. When I found and discovered that it was the Catholic Church who compiled the Bible together, again, I went nuts. I was like, if this is the truth, this is what I want to do. So at that point, my senior year, freshman year in college, I dedicated my entire life to wanting to serve in the church, specifically to bring people closer to the Lord. And so long story short, that led me to where I'm currently at right now, which is the director of marriage and family life at St. Byrd of Clairvaux. So I oversee all the ministries, but I specifically work with engaged couples who are preparing for marriage, and also those who are seeking, who are wanting to become Catholic through the RCIA process. So
nice.
Yeah, it's kind of a long story.
Oh, praise God, man! That's a wonderful story.
It's beautiful.
Absolutely, yeah. Praise God, really, for his power.
So are you guys cradle Catholic then?
We are cradle Catholic.
Nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. I grew up. Speaking of a Hispanic household, I grew up with the Sacred Heart image of Jesus, where he kind of stares at you everywhere you go.
The hologram version.
Yeah, the hologram.
Nice. Carniceria Ramos.
That's the one you get at the butcher shop, right?
Yeah,
in Mexico.
Yeah. It's like my grandma would call it el cromo, because it was like,
yeah.
That's really funny, dude. Like the plates inside of the oven. Yeah. That is like classic.
It's totally classic.
You had like the Mexican Tupperware. Do you know what that is?
Is that where you just take like leftover sour cream?
Hey,
yeah.
There you go.
Well, in Monterrey, it's like country crock.
Yeah,
But it's like you're playing like.
You're
Russian
trying to look
roulette.
for the butter, and you can't find the butter.
There's no butter.
You just spill pozole all over the place.
Oh, butter. Dang it, jalapenos. Butter, pozole. Dang it.
Yeah. Well, I might eat this with the jalapenos.
So in Nicaragua, we eat what we call gallo pinto, which is a mixture of rice and black beans, and you mix it up. And I don't know if you guys grew up this way, but in my family, my mother, instead of using a lid, she would use a grocery bag. Did you guys ever see that before?
I've never seen that.
Because apparently in Nicaraguan culture creates more of just more moisture in the rice. And so definitely, yeah.
So that rice. We're going to have to try that one. But I've seen it in the tamales on top of the vaporera, like to trap the steam.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, sweet.
So I do the when I roast my chilies, that's where I put them. So I roast them over fire. And then as soon as they come out of the fire, you throw them in a plastic bag. And then it's just like almost melts the bag, but that makes the skin fall off really easily.
Any plastic that melts,
the
chili, it just comes off.
Yeah. So the skin of the chili comes off with the plastic.
One thing that happens a lot is that we talk a lot about food. It's not on purpose. We just end up talking about
just
food.
tangents. It's just tangents.
Yeah. It's fine. This is I feel like the Latino culture is like food is it's a sixth love language.
It is.
You know, like
it really is. And I remember when I was teaching at the schools and I was doing youth ministry, I would straight up ask the kids, like, hey, if y'all have any leftover tamales, like, bring it over. And people, like, I remember people will kind of hear that, like, oh, that's so rude, Ryan. But the reality is, for Hispanics, we find that endearing.
Oh,
It's an
yeah.
endearing thing.
it's
to
like,
ask
oh, they
you.
want to try my home cooking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I had students and people always bring me food because,
Dude, even in parishes, especially parishes that have a lot of Hispanics, you know, whenever you're gonna, we're collecting money for this, and Hispanics are like, dang, I don't got a lot of money. But when you say, oh, we need food for this, I got you.
I got you.
That's how we participate.
Put me down for 3 dozen tamales.
Yeah.
Right?
I thought you didn't have any money. It's like, y'all work it out.
You know, when Ivan and I were roommates, Ivan would text me like right around like 5:30, and I was like, "Have you had dinner yet?" And I was like, "No." It's like, I'm at my parents' house. I'll be right there. It's just
That's
going.
awesome.
It's like, hey,
I love that.
what's for dinner? So
True story.
So you said that you did youth ministry and you were teaching at high school in St. Mary's, right?
Yeah.
One of the first questions that I had for you is, I know from a good source that you kind of told students, everyone will let you down and you will die. Is that how you would wrap up your class?
Every single class.
Every single
class, I would say, guys, before you leave, remember 2 things. Everyone will disappoint you and you will die someday. And my students hated it. They were like, come on, Mr. Yala, be more positive. But yeah, I would wrap up every single class.
I'm positive that everybody will disappoint you.
Exactly.
And I'm super positive that you will die, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Why did you decide that? Where did that come from?
Well, I would say the first part, which was everyone will disappoint you. I remember reading this story of Saint Philip Neri, where he would wake up every single morning. Saint Philip Neri is the laughing saint, the patron of the laughing saint, the joking saint is what they call him. He would wake up every single morning and he would look in the mirror. And part of his morning prayer would be, Lord, don't trust Philip today. That was his morning prayer. Lord, don't trust me today. And he said that because he knew that in order to advance in the spiritual life, one needs to have a complete distrust in self and a complete trust in the Lord. And so he did that to remind himself that you need to trust in the Lord. And so I said that to people, and I said that to my students because I want them to understand that if you put your trust in princes or in man, they will fall. They will fail you. Everyone. And it's not because they're eagerly waiting to disappoint you, but because of the effects of original sin, right? We are human. We are going to fail. And so immediately I wanted to drill in them to put your trust in God right away.
Nice.
Total
dependence on God, right?
Total dependence on God.
And you will die.
Memento
Very
mori.
uplifting.
Yeah. So actually, even to add more to the morbid aspect of my teaching style, I would actually have a skull placed on the center of my desk. And
That's
I would,
baller.
Yeah, I would face it towards them so that they always remember their death. You know, I know people kind of saw it as a joke. I didn't, because the reality was the goal of Catholic education is to prepare for man's last end, which is death, which is ultimate union with God. And so I did that to remind them that, listen, if you don't know where you're going, then your life has no meaning or purpose. So know that when you die, 2 things happen. You will either come face to face with God and be welcomed into the heavenly banquet, or you will be punished for all of eternity. So I wanted them to remind that, like, this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
A true Catholic education is preparing students for death, a happy death.
Yeah, because right now, like, people are like, well, you know, be kind, you know, and when you die, well, we don't know. We don't know what's after that.
Yeah.
There's like this forgetfulness about the last things, you know, which is kind of sad. So that's a good. We did an episode of Memento Mori. I don't know. Are you familiar with the work of Sister Teresa Alicia?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, she wrote that book, right? Was she write a book about the journal, the death journal?
She has a journal, and I think like a companion for like Lent and Advent and things like that.
I haven't read it, but I heard it's pretty good.
Same, but it looks pretty well designed. You know, like the media notes, they're pretty cool. So COVID hit in 2020, and then something happened at St. Mary's, which prompted the opportunity for you to go to St. Bernard, which A lot of people say Saint Bernard. I always would say Saint Bernard or Bernard. I would say Bernard, but I've heard it both ways. Like,
yeah, I think the French say Bernard.
Bernard.
I think so.
But can you tell us a little bit more about your experience with working with couples that are preparing, or like your own, like you talked a little bit about your conversion and coming to the Lord, but like the moment that you were like, marriage is my vocation and I'm going to do my best to be the best father and husband, dad, because I mean, from what I can tell, you take that pretty seriously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll tell you a story that happened recently. A few months ago, I was talking to some priest friends, and they were talking about how they married couples need to step up, need to take their vocations more seriously. And for some reason, I just kind of felt so kind of frustrated at them. And these are my friends, so I told them like straight up, like, fine, if I'm going to take my marriage seriously, I need you to take your priesthood seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually got so emotional talking to them because I wake up every single day, and not to sound so sinister about marriage, but I wake up every single day as if my marriage is on the line. In other words, there is a reality of that when I wake up, like I have to fight for my marriage, right? I have to actively put myself in a position to think like, okay, I know the evil one is doing everything that he can to attack my marriage. And he does that because he knows my weakness, he does it in a way that he knows how to affect me. So he will expose my fatherly wounds, right? He will kind of keep pointing and picking at my fatherly wounds. He'll keep sowing seeds of discouragement, right? Or trying to weaken my will in other ways. And so yeah, that's for me. I really do take my marriage seriously. I take my vocation seriously. And so, so I really want to impart that with like the young couples that I meet, that, in the Catholic Church, it's YOMO. You only get married once. There's no, you don't get to do, there's no do-over.
Sounds better than YOLO.
For sure. Yeah. You only get married once. There's no do-over. Like this is it. When you say yes before the Lord and you consent to each other, that's it. It's for life.
And I think there's a lot of misconception, especially sadly, in the Hispanic culture, because we put a lot of emphasis into the party, right? And the church part of it, which is literally the covenant that you're signing there, is between you and your spouse. And I think that's what gets overlooked the most, because even the couple, are preoccupied with the honeymoon, the house, the party,
the cake,
the guests,
the Instagram photo,
now the social aspect of it, right? And I think the preparation aspect of it does falter a little bit. Then we see the results, right? I mean, exponential numbers of divorces happening because they were like, we didn't know. Like, well, you should have, Yeah. And it's not to your fault, as a couple. I think it's both culturally, but the preparation that you receive is crucial.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the angle I like to approach with regard to that is really kind of strengthening their consent, kind of helping them understand that what actually makes a marriage valid in the eyes of the church is obviously doing it with an ordained minister, a priest or deacon, but also your yes, right? When you say yes to each other, the church sees that as binding. And so helping them understand that like your yes means something very, very, very significant. So I try to help couples understand, prepare for that yes, because there's no going back.
Right. Yeah. And I like that you got emotional when you were like discussing this with your priest friend, because I think especially for men right now, there's like, we talk about like a crisis in the priesthood, but I would say that there's also a crisis in the vocations to marriage, especially with men. We have very old adolescent men who are still, addicted to pornography and playing video games, like we had mentioned before we started rolling, that are not stepping up. That like really right now, if you want to be countercultural, get married,
young,
have children,
get married young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I got married when I was 30 and ya se me iba el tren. Mm-hmm. So we got to hurry this thing up. But, what are like the average ages of like men that you see that are going through your parish? Are they young? Is there hope?
Yeah. They are young. I would say, 27, 28, 29. I think there's 1,000 things that are threatening marriage these days. I hate to be so sinister and dark about it, but I'm just being real. And there's a lot of things I think are threatening marriage. But I would say one thing that I'm seeing constantly is really just like people are just like men are just busy. People are just busy. They pride themselves in being busy. They're just super busy. And so obviously when you're busy, you just kind of overcrowd yourself from any sort of self-reflection, any room for Christ, any room for wisdom from the church. And so I see they're just super busy. They're just busy with their careers. They're busy with games. They're busy with watching sports. They're busy with, all this other stuff.
Well, it's all very self-indulgent too, right?
Yeah, 1,000%.
I think thinking back to when I was in college, I always thought that I was like, no, I'm going to get like a good job. I'm going to get like my career and travel and do this and that. And I'm not going to get married until after 30, dude, because that's sometimes the conception that we have that it's like, okay, it's something that I got to do eventually. So I got to get through all this stuff before I do that.
Dude, that's like, even in Mexico, I mean, it's like you have to finish your college education. Yeah. You need to get a good job. So you're a good provider. And until you have like a good salary that you can sustain a family, then start thinking about it.
So you start thinking in a very practical, which is not wrong to have preparedness.
Right.
But then I think, and I met my now wife at 23 and is like, can we get married? Yeah, please. Will you marry me? And we got married young, but now I see that it's that self-indulgence that people don't want to share stuff. Clearly, right? And they want to share everything online, but we don't want to share ourselves.
Our life.
Our time, our life, our most prized possession, which is our mind and our heart and our love. I don't know why we're so afraid of giving that up. Rejection, I don't know, fear. I think it's mostly the fear of losing your liberty, to be honest. A lot of people say, no, I don't want to get tied down. It's like, no, dude, you're actually more free,
What do you guys think about, I don't know if you guys ever talked about this in the podcast already, but what about like the machismo sort of attitude that, we see in Hispanic cultures that.
Oh, yeah, that plays a role 100%. I mean, I don't know your experience.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a household where it wasn't a machista thing, but it was, in all of my dad's family, even my mom's family, they grew up where, the wife,
does everything,
cook dinner. And then my dad would come home and sit down and my mom would serve him and all her kids. But it was never one of those things where my dad's like, woman, where's my food? It wasn't like that. It was my mom, because she has the heart of a servant. Like she loved to serve her family and her husband, but it wasn't a machista thing. But I think now more than ever, like we're seeing that where, we all try to be more independent. And,
that's it.
And I like my independence. I, kind of like the machista thing is kind of going away.
I mean, there's also like guys that is just like players, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's like
100%.
That's what their definition of man is, like how many conquests.
Yeah. So me growing up, because I saw that, when I wanted to get married, I, not that I demand my wife cook me dinner and serve me and the girls. Like, no, I've always told my wife, like, you don't have to do that for me. But she does it because she wants to serve me, and I appreciate that. It's a beautiful thing to see.
It's a difference between demanding and being a recipient.
Oh yeah,
of all of those things.
Because it's an expression of love at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Right. And women are the natural nurturers, and I think that's also something else that's gone blurred. The lines have gotten blurred.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. I think in my own family, I kind of dealt with the opposite in where, because my parents grew up in 1979 in Nicaragua, where they had really deep distrust or trust issues, and so my mom and my dad have always had this sort of distrust towards the world, but also there's kind of a distrust towards themselves. But I remember I remember for our wedding, we did the washing of the feet thing, and uh, afterwards, my parents told me that a few of my other family members did not like that. They found it severely offensive, like that
Offensive?
that a man would ever like bow down to a woman and to
What?
wash her
Wow.
feet. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Dang.
So and even yeah, and so so that was, that's a kind of that they don't see like the man as like as servant to his family and to his wife,
Mhm.
protector, but also servant to his family.
They see them as like the
Yeah,
Yeah, the
You
head
have
of
to be
the
the alpha.
you
the
have to be
alpha.
the alpha. Yeah. Yeah, I remember one time. So my mom taught me when I was in 7th grade to iron. So I picked up ironing when I was in 7th grade. So I ironed all my clothes and all this stuff. I remember one time my wife and I were getting ready for a wedding. My wife, she had her dress was wrinkled, and I decided to iron it. And my mom walked in while I was ironing her dress, and my mom closed the door and she says, "You never iron a woman's dress. Like that's just what we do. We don't do that. Like in our culture, we don't do that." And I just thought, wow.
Oh my
Now I'm not
gosh.
judging her because
Yeah.
she grew up in a very specific time,
Mhm.
but I do remember like, whoa, this is the kind of stuff that I have to kind of
Yeah.
fight against, And
Mhm.
it wasn't my mom, but it's the cultural thing.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think in my hometown, when we've only visited like in 2018 when we had the kids, and I'm very involved with the kids and child rearing and all these things. So there's a term in Spanish, mandilon,
Oh
which
yeah.
is basically you're whipped.
Mm.
You're whipped.
You're the one that wears the apron. That's what a
Basically,
mandil is.
yeah, that's what a mandil is. But I think that there is this misconception that as a father, you provide a paycheck and that's your whole contribution to the family. Where
Mhm.
I came from a family where my dad would cook, my dad would clean, wash dishes.
Wow.
It's a very different
Yeah.
kind of Mexican dad that you are used to.
Yeah. Praise
And he
God.
worked like 2 jobs,
Yeah.
and he
praise
had
God.
time for all those things. So I think that the common denominator that the three of us have had is that we have fathers that have shown us that there is like all these other dimensions to manhood, to
Mhm.
fatherhood.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to like instill in whoever that is listening, that it's like, no, like part of the joy or finding the joy in being a husband and a father is, imitating Christ. We need
Mhm.
to be that figure for our families, to empty ourselves for our families, because we are supposed to imitate him. He emptied himself for his bride, the church.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't know.
That's
It
wonderful.
depends on like your personal experience. Everybody has a different father wounds, like you mentioned.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I guess like, what would be like that the top advice you would give someone who is listening that is like on the fence about asking the girl out and for a date, or like thinking about marriage?
Yeah. Just do it. You never, no, seriously. 'Cause I think all of us, if we're being honest, like there's some times when we look back and we're like, damn, like why did my wife give me a chance? Like if there's like I'm probably more critical of myself. I'm like, wow, I am like miserable. Like I'm an awful person. Like,
Yeah.
like why did you give me a chance, wife? And because I guess she saw something that I didn't. So I would encourage any young man who's considering asking a girl out or thinking about proposing, like do it. Muster enough courage to do it.
Mhm.
Have the let's play the piano.
Play the piano
upside down.
backwards.
And speaking of having cojones, this is a really good transition, by the way. You see how confident I get after one Manhattan? This is a really good transition. Need to go to confession.
Walter's the king of the segues.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
love
the
it.
king of the transitions.
Another reason why we wanted to have you on the podcast is because every other episode, I think that we quote Saint Jose Maria Escriva. Mm-hmm. And actually, I have a really cool story that I think you'll appreciate. When Deanna and I were dating, my spiritual director at the time gave me the prayer for the family of Saint Jose Maria Escriva.
Yeah.
And that's what we would pray together when we were discerning before we got engaged.
Wonderful.
Or maybe after we got engaged, when we were preparing to get into the sacrament.
Wonderful.
And then I took her to Monterrey in 2013 to we were visiting family. Someone else was getting married. We went to the cathedral in Monterrey, and they had a relic of Saint Jose Maria in one of the side altars. I was like, this is one of those winks that God throws at you.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's amazing.
Yeah. And I think with Estovir, Camino, it's been like, when Ivan first introduced me to Camino, I was like, he does not mince words. Mm-hmm. When you start reading it in Spanish, it's like,
oh yeah, it's Spanish.
In Spanish, it's so much more effective, I think.
It's like he's lapping you through the pages. Mm-hmm. But how did you find out about Saint Jose Maria? Like, are you part of the Opus Dei, or you're just like big fan?
Yeah, no, I'm not part of Opus Dei. But actually, I found out through my spiritual director when I was discerning seminary. But basically, my spiritual director told me to pick up the Way and to kind of just read through it slowly. And if there was a quote that stood out to me, to write it down on a sticky note, fold it up, put it in my pocket, and throughout the day, just kind of pull it out and sort of remind myself of the inspiration that I had. And so that I would pick up his practice. And one of the things I kind of realized with Jose Maria Escriva is, he's not afraid to punch you in the mouth. And I respect that. I remember hearing, who was the boxer? Maybe it was Mike Tyson, who says, like, I think it was Mike Tyson who said, like, I respect blood in my mouth. Like, there's just like, I respect. And so with Escriva, he was different in compared to other saints because he was not afraid to punch you in the mouth. And I respected that. It met me where I was at that time, which was, I needed that kind of
tough love, right?
Tough love, Theo love, So
exactly.
That's kind of where I picked up my love for Saint Jose Maria Escriva. Yeah.
Nice.
And then also just really being inspired by his contribution to the church. People don't know, but Saint Jose Maria Escriva was the one who crystallized and made official the church's teaching on this universal call to holiness. Now, we've always believed that since the antiquity of the church, since the primitive church, but it was Saint Jose Maria Escriva at the Council, Second Vatican Council, where he actually made it official and part of church teaching that everyone is called to holiness. So, and I loved his sort of practical advice that he gives. It's very practical, don't hit the snooze button, wake up on the dot, servium, I will serve, the devil says I will not serve, non-servium. So he just gives a very practical way of living out the faith, which I think is just so attainable for anyone. So yeah, I really love him.
Yeah, it's like brass tacks.
Exactly.
For your day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the heroic minute, man, I struggle with that. Like, not gonna lie, I forget most days. It's like, I don't know, maybe 5 more minutes.
Well, it was easier when I didn't have kids. Like when I had kids, like you're just like scratching for sleep. Like you're just like clawing for extra bedtime.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3.
How long have you been married?
I've been married for 7 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, 2014 as well?
Yeah.
What month?
May.
Oh, okay. 19. October.
Nice. Congratulations.
I think we hit same. Wait, I think our kids are kind of around the same age range.
Yeah. How old are yours?
I have 5, 3, 2, and 7 months.
Oh yeah. Yeah. 5, 2, and like 9 months. Yeah. Right.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
So
let us know when you're pregnant because you need to really tighten the screws on NFP.
We have an episode on NFP.
By the way, check it out. It's pretty good. This is the reason why we are having the podcast right now, because now you can cut that part out. It shouldn't be part of the episode.
This is our form of NFP.
This is a form of NFP. We have a podcast. We are doing productive things with our time.
That's funny.
I cracked myself up. Sorry, Ryan. So in the hobbies episode, we made a reference about how Ivan's hobby is being a cigar aficionado, and I've seen several of your stories on Instagram that you're like introducing people to like the joys of tobacco.
Yes.
Do you have like we need to make it like a thing, like the liturgy of the cigar?
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, going back to my sort of over obsession of death. In the church, there's a discipline, there's a science called eschatology, and eschatology deals with the end times. So, right. And so the liturgy is an eschatological event. When we go to mass, we are moving towards the end times. We are a pilgrim church towards the end times. So here's what I was thinking. What if we call this like the catechesis through like a cigar, or eschatology with a cigar, or like something eschatological with a cigar? Because what I love about smoking a cigar is that I think it naturally just reminds you of your last end, or like your final end, which is God. So it's an eschatological action. So it's an eschatological action.
It has an ending to it.
It has an ending to it. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I picked up smoking a cigar 2013. I'm actually kind of new to the cigar world, relatively speaking.
Same.
And it was a book. I don't know if you've read it. It's called Leisure, the Basis of Culture. It was written by a philosopher and theologian by the name of Joseph Pieper. And in this book, he talks about really exploring the philosophical understanding of leisure. And really, that's the basis of culture. So once I read that book, I wanted to do more leisurely things and not do things that just sort of kept me busy. So I picked up smoking a cigar, because I realized when I was smoking a cigar that it forces you to slow down. Like literally, you can't rush a cigar unless you blow your lungs out. Like
you're thrown green in the face.
Yeah, exactly. Like vape pens, cigarettes, marijuana. Like you can kind of rush those things. But with a cigar or a pipe, you really can't rush, right?
And you also don't want to.
You don't want to. Mm-hmm. Yes. And so I realized that a cigar led me to being present to the moment. And so that's why I really love smoking a cigar, because it allows me to stop and be present to whatever's in front of me, whether that's a friend, whether that's a book, whether that's whiskey. It just allows me to be present at that moment, which is leisure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that the concept of leisure is not something that like people associate leisure with, like, downtime, Netflix, video games. Can you elaborate a little bit more on like what actually leisure means?
Yeah. So in that book, Leisure, the Basis of Culture, Joseph Pieper was writing to a 1930s, 1940s philosophical assumption that was really promoted by Karl Marx and Marxism, which says essentially that man finds his dignity in work. And so Joseph Pieper did not like that. He's like, well, what about the elderly? What about the unborn? What about the babies, right? If you only find your dignity in work, then you have a whole group of people who must not be dignified, right? And so Joseph Pieper was writing to combat that notion of Marxism, which is actually no, man finds his dignity in being, in who he was created to be, which is a child or daughter of God. And so so really that kind of that understanding of leisure, that leisure is meant to kind of allow us to recreate ourselves. That's why we call recreation, right? In recreation, we recreate ourselves, or we recreate who we're created to be. And so that's why I think leisure is really important, because it just, again, allows us to be present to the moment.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that evil of having the dignity of a person attached to how much they can produce. The whole wave of communism that came out and finally, I mean, it's still alive and kicking in some countries right now, but
Yeah. Well, I see it. Well, I don't know about you, because you homeschool your kids, right?
Yes, we do.
Well, I see it a lot in schooling, right? This sort of, let's rush our kids through, let's kind of push our kids through the curriculum. Let's, ensure that they're getting 8 hours of
busy work, essentially.
Instruction a day, versus, something that my wife and I, we really kind of have took ownership with is ensuring that our child is educated well through this sort of means or lens of leisure that And part of that is to kind of preserve his sense of wisdom or wonder, right? Is to preserve that. It's to safeguard his wonder. And a leisurely understanding of education, I think, does that, right? It says slow down. It says be present to the moment. It says the child is curious to know about things. Let's honor that and respect that, right? And so
that's very like educating from rest.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think our wives are reading the same books, probably. But yeah, that's and I think it's so bizarre that when I see, like, I mean, I work from home, so like my office is right there. So I just go in and see my kids doing like schoolwork, and sometimes it takes like 30, 40 minutes. Sometimes Oliver is inspired and wants to do worksheets the whole morning, and he like really gets into it. Like he got really into like Native Americans one week, and we went to the Hurt Museum.
That's it. I love that.
The whole family is involved in the education of the child, and so inquisitive, and that also like helps us as parents to be like involved. Growing in that patience of like, but what about this? What about this? All the questions.
And again, it's such a radical thing to, again, going back to kind of Hispanic culture, because my family migrated to another country, there is this sort of stigma that, I migrated here to give you and your brother a better opportunity to be successful, to earn education and all that. And of course, all that's fine. But even then, there is this sort of pressure, even amongst Hispanic culture, to like that sort of understanding of education is kind of weird.
It is weird.
It's like, what? You're not assessing him. You're not measuring his reading skills when he's at 5 years old. There's this sort of pressure to make sure that he can read at a certain.
That he's not behind.
Yeah, that's right.
Yet everybody in school is behind, right?
Well, that's the thing. Like when Deanna and I met, I was like, we were discussing how many kids we could have, or we wanted to have, not because all the children that God would send us. But I was like, I think a good number would be 3 children. And Deanna was like, why? And I said, because that's how many kids I think I can send to college. That has changed in the 7 years.
What changed?
Maybe you don't need.
What changed? Because that's a big shift in your mind. Like what changed?
Well, like I grew up being told by my parents, like, you need to go to the best college in town, which is one of the private colleges that is ranked number 1 in Latin America. Whatever. I had a scholarship. That's the only reason I was able to attend. But and that has given me a lot of opportunities that I have right now, like living here for the last 10 years, one of them, meeting my wife, all these wonderful things, which is not to say that it's a bad thing, but the state of universities in the United States right now, I don't want to spend that much money for my children to be indoctrinated in something that I am spending so much time right now to form them.
Exactly.
For all of that to be
washed away in the first year.
In 4 years,
Oh, in the first year, dude.
Yeah.
Because it's so aggressive right now, how they're just brainwashing kids. And they're starting early now. Before you got to high school or college, and you're like, okay, I get it. You're forming yourself as an individual and your identity, but you don't know who you are. So they tell you who you should be.
There's so much confusion.
And there's so much confusion.
I mean, people blame the Catholic Church of indoctrination, but the public education system is that.
That's right. Yeah.
It's like it's okay when it is their kind of indoctrination.
Plus, I think that what we found with homeschooling is that it's about teaching the children to love how to learn.
Yes. Amen.
Because it's something that they're going to have to do the rest of their lives.
Amen.
If they see school as something that they have to get through, then when they're done with school, they're just going to become dumb again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're all dumb when we grow, but that sense of wonder that you started to talk about, that's what gets us into knowledge and into expanding that knowledge.
Yes.
And if people just get through college to get a job that's going to give them nothing but money, then it also goes to that talk of dignity, right? Because then if you're only dignified by what you make, not what you know or what you can contribute, then
or what you're
your
meant
self-worth
to do,
or your mission in life, then your self-worth just goes completely out the door. And that's why I think there's so much depression now, because people really don't know who they are or what they're capable for. How we were reading in this book, The Advent of the Heart, for one of the episodes that we did, it was like, that's what you have to do, it's like you cannot, I lost my train of thought there, but the schooling is super important. The schooling is super important because teaching the kid to love how to learn is a skill that no teacher and no school can give them right now.
Absolutely.
And it's something that if it's done at home, because sometimes my kids are like, they start school at 8:00 in the morning and they're done by 11, and they put in a full day's work, and then they still have time to have leisure, to have play, which is super important for a kid's development, 100%. To have a window, for crying out loud. Yeah. Why do they build schools like prisons? It's craziness.
Yeah.
So all of those things are really affecting child development, I think, because you're seeing depression at earlier and earlier ages now.
Yeah.
So it's a blessing. Homeschooling is a blessing.
Amen. Anybody got any other questions for Ryan? You good? Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being our first.
Thank you for having me.
I got a question. Sorry. What was your expectation of being the first guest in this podcast? And did we meet it?
I sent him the questions in advance. So.
I know.
No, you guys were awesome. There were no expectations. That was the first one. So
good.
There were no expectations. This was awesome. Thanks for having me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I do every time that I come and record. I have no expectations.
You have to.
You know why I didn't have any expectations? Because everyone will disappoint you.
There you go. And you will die.
And you will die.
Eventually will die. We need a t-shirt that says that.
You will die.
Dude, yes.
Everybody will disappoint you. And
Can we use your face for that t-shirt?
Dude.
Yeah.
So the front's going to say everybody will disappoint you. And then when they see you walking away from you, and you will die.
All right. So while we're taking Ryan's picture for the t-shirt, we want to thank you for listening to this episode of Barbatus Catholic Podcast, the show where three Mexican dads talk about faith, life, and culture. If you like the podcast or got something out of this episode, please share with your friends and family. Subscribe, like, comment, rate, and review if you haven't. If you're feeling extra generous, you can buy us a coffee. Go to buymeacoffee.com/Barbatus and follow the instructions. If you buy us a coffee, you automatically get a shout out in one of our episodes. And if you don't like the podcast, well, just keep it to yourself and let others make their own mistakes. You can find show notes for this episode at barbatuscatholicpodcast.com, and on social media, we are on Instagram at Barbatus Catholic Podcast. Bless us, Casey.
Pray for us.
Until the next time.